ladies and gentlemen, I'm Dennis Nickens, aka Spiritual Romeo, and I'm coming to you guys again with another amazing conversation when I'm about to have with someone that I know when I was in Germany, someone that we spent some time together over in Europe, also bowled against each other and just enjoyed our time. And I'm talking about my friend Ryan. We've known each other. He spent more than 29 years in the service, and so he's actually transitioned to be an actual teacher. So he's going to be talking about how he's going to utilize his leadership skills and apply it to the teaching profession in order to develop and grow our children. So Ryan, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing well, Dennis. I thank you for this opportunity, and I hope I have a little bit of wisdom that I can share with your audience.
Trust me, the information is going to be beneficial to everyone that hears it. I have no doubts about that. So just before we get started, just tell people a little bit about your background, where you came from, and what motivated you to get into the educational field.
Okay, as you said, I'm Ryan Lawrence. I'm in a U.S. Army career that started when I was enlisted back in '87, and I'll be retiring next month with 29 years. I have a family of 5, so I have a wife that I've been married to for 32 years, Lorie. We have 3 adult children. Our youngest is finishing up college at George Mason. We have a middle daughter, Jessica, who has Down syndrome. So we've kind of gone through the effort for a special child going through the school system. And that was kind of part of my responsibility within the family to kind of provide oversight and to ensure that she got the best education that she could. Originally in my educational career, I started out in business, and I studied business for 2 years, ran out of money and went in the U.S. Army. And then I went back to school. And when I went back to school, I wanted to get in a career field that I felt like I could better serve others and felt it was more valuable. And so that's when I switched and went into the educational career field. And I graduated in 1994 with a bachelor's degree in education. But I also went directly back into the military, commissioned in 1994, and have been serving since then. So I have not really had a formal opportunity to use my degree in education, but I will be starting this fall as a 4th grade elementary teacher, teaching science and social studies in the Clarksville-Montgomery school district outside Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Oh man, awesome. Again, we salute you. Appreciate your service, my brother. Appreciate everything that you've done for our country and definitely for the great nation for which we have served together in. So let me ask you this question as it pertains to processing information. How do you think, you're going to go best about teaching kids about processing information as it applied to the information that you teach them and information that they pretty much going to develop?
I have to admit, Dennis, that this was probably the question that I least preferred of what you shared with me, because I feel a little bit dated in my study of developmental theory and cognitive and information processing and everything. But I think I'm going to be working with 4th graders, kids that are somewhere around 10 years old, that are fairly early in the educational process. And so I think for me, I want to try and help them develop some foundational skills so that as I provide them information or as they read new information, that they develop some skills into how to distinguish what is most important, that they kind of work on some skills on how to organize information, and then they have an opportunity to then take the information they learn and use them in other scenarios through problem solving or other fashions to kind of take that information and apply it to a different scenario or to a different problem. But I think for me, it's just kind of really working on their foundation, working on their oral written communication skills, their, organization, their note taking and ideas like that. But I have to admit that I haven't, formally taught this age level. And so it's definitely going to be something that I have to kind of adjust on the fly with the experts that are kind of available to help support me, as a new teacher.
But hey, the information is definitely great. And I understand, just dealing with, in military, it's a process. It's at a younger level, but they still have to understand a process of how to utilize the information that you're teaching them and apply it to their life. So, I mean, even in, 29 years of service, it's a process that kids are going to have to go to. More importantly, learn it. Because if they don't learn the basic fundamentals, then they're going to struggle as they go to the next level. So I definitely get that. So as it pertains to technology, with COVID-19, as you know, is taking effect, how do you foresee? I know you said you got your educational degree back in '94. Hey, understandable. But with technology becoming a big part and pretty much we're teaching the kids at home, how do you think that's going to play in how we're teaching our kids?
I mean, technology now is just a everyday part of life, and I think quite often the children, the youth, come to school with already a decent understanding. Often these kids have already interacted with iPads and tablets and Game Boys and cell phones and everything else. Some of the volunteer time I did this past school year at Fort Campbell with the military, they had smart boards in each of the classrooms, and those were kind of a nice luxury. And I didn't get a chance to fully explore their capability, but definitely, a smart board gave you, a teacher, an opportunity to present information in a more appealing manner, in a more organized manner. Sometimes it even allowed, in some ways, increased participation because you could kind of manipulate the data much better than you could do with a simple whiteboard or a chalkboard or something else. Also, you're seeing now within the schools, and I think within the school district I'm joining, essentially all students are assigned an individual laptop. And so by them being assigned a individual laptop, you're developing several different things. One is responsibility for maintaining and proper use of a laptop and how it functions. And, how do you care for it properly? You store it, you put away, how do you power up? Each student has their username and password that they're going to have to know how to learn and input. And one thing is nice is, it's hard I think in the lower grades to stay engaged with all the students. It's just, you're typically one teacher, typically no assistants unless you have special needs children in your classroom. And so, if you're trying to work with students individually or in small groups, you got to have something else to keep the other students engaged in that. And so I've seen where these laptops and educational games are often very appealing to students, and the students do these games and they don't even realize that they're learning. They think they're playing games, and they're actually going through educational programs that provide learning or provide an opportunity to reinforce the teacher's lessons. And so I think in some regard, that's hopefully something that I can do, is that I can use technology to reinforce some of the lessons. As a social studies teacher, I'm going to be responsible for early American history, American Revolution up through the Civil War. And so I'm trying to do some preparations for this with my own knowledge and education with reading and everything else. But you can take something like a YouTube channel or something else, and they have, I can't think of the term right now, but they have different programs on, General Grant or Abraham Lincoln or, Washington's crossing the Delaware River and others. And you can use technology a little bit better than the old TV shows and movies that we had when we were in school. And it gives a chance for the students to see, oh, that's the uniforms they wore. That was the conditions they were operating under. That's some of the sights and sounds, of the battlefield or whatever. And so I think there's a lot of use for technology, and it's definitely going to be something that I'm challenged to get more current with what they have. One technology I was just briefly introduced is called Nearpod, and it's kind of like a very improved version of PowerPoint that you can kind of put slides together and embed quizzes or check on learning and everything else. And there's something you can develop a lesson for, and then students could do it individually, or you could do it as a class, and then you can kind of have checks on learning as you go along to see how much the students are understanding of the information that's present before these checks and that. And so there's a lot of different uses of technology. And fortunately, the school district I'm going to, there's one person dedicated to to IT and technology. And so I am going to have to become a close friend of this person to help me get more current. Because I think on my school district, there's, I think like 30 educational apps that they have. And I'm like,
Wow.
Okay. And a lot of them are, you know, some of them are for me and the information I need as a teacher and everything else. But some of them are, you know, different things that you can use to develop lessons in that. And so I think it's important. I think it's something you almost have to have. And as we deal with the virus situation, it's probably going to become even more important because while we hope to have school within the classroom, we have to be very prepared to be hybrid learning or online classes if it requires that. And so technology is going to be integral for this.
Wow. Wow. You gave us a wealth of information. And like I said, it's definitely going to be, technology definitely have changed the way we go about educating ourselves. And even dealing with technology as it transitions to the next question I'm going to ask you, technology and the challenges that our kids are going to face. It seemed like, when I was going through school, it seemed like, we had to read a lot. We had to read, a lot of books we had to read and stuff like that. Do you foresee with technology, and it seems like more kids are becoming more visual versus being someone that requires to read a book, like you were saying, they're utilizing YouTube in order to learn. Do you see that? What's the asset and benefit, or I guess not asset and benefit, but what's the difference in being those that are visual versus those that actually, I say, reading for say?
I think that's going to be part of my role as a teacher to develop relationships with my students and understand how they learn best and be prepared to be flexible to present lessons in different fashions to try to appeal to them, to try to gain their interest in learning and seeking knowledge. And I think that's one of the big benefits of IT is you don't just have to read a textbook, and you can present it in various modes or fashions to better enable the students to learn. One thing that I was starting to learn about is I don't have a science textbook for next year.
Okay.
As a new teacher, I went, what? What do you mean I don't have a textbook? I mean, I feel pretty good about going away from the textbook, but, and they were like, oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it. But, for science, there is curriculum and there's, themes and objectives and others. But there's not a specific hands-on textbook. And so they use online material. They use some other programs and so forth for the material. And so I'm a bit anxious. I showed a lot of my military enthusiasm for a new assignment, and I tried to seek a lot of information and get information and do stuff. And they were kind of like, slow down a second. We're on our summer break. We're breaking and recharging. We're going to hit it again in July. We'll link you up, with the academic coaches and everything else, but, just relax. It'll be okay. And we'll have the support system in place to help you. But, now on the other hand, I've heard they have an excellent textbook for social studies, and it's a very valuable one. And then I am trying to come up with different ideas of what I can do to add to the social studies. And then also for me, one thing that's a bit different, I'm paired up with the two other teachers that I mentioned. One's doing reading language arts and the other's doing math. Well, those two subjects, more time is spent on in the elementary grades because that's where more of the standard tests takes place, the standardized tests and that. So in a given day, I think I will teach 6 classes. My 2 teammates will each teach 3 classes. Now, I don't know how exactly they'll work out the schedule, if their class will be, close to twice as long, or during their time will also be some of the special subjects where they're doing the art, the music, or PE or something else. But they definitely put more of an emphasis on reading language arts and math at the lower grades because of the standardized tests and because they see those as the core subject areas that they have to better establish a foundation with these younger students. So it'll be interesting for me to see how that shapes out.
Got it. So do you think, because I heard you say that, they're telling you to kind of pump your brake. Is it kind of, is it discouraging at times to where you're excited, you want to get into this, but they're telling, hey, slow down there, fella. We want to put, is that discouraging?
It was a little bit discouraged at first, because I had a lot of enthusiasm and everything else, but then it has permitted me to focus on my transition from the military. It has permitted me to do, I've done some pretty good reading for my social studies areas. And so I've also read some professional texts. There's some very good texts out there for teachers that I thought were very good. And it's just, I've just kind of taken my time. I have some medical stuff I'm sorting out too, coming out of the military. So getting that taken care of and getting established here in Tennessee and everything. And so they're like, don't worry, you'll work hard and you'll sprint later. But right now, just kind of, slow down and we'll get to it. And I think part of it was just a reassurance of me that they have the support system in place to ensure my success. And that's something. I mean, we're accustomed in the military going to new assignments and quickly integrating, but we always try to research our next assignments. We always try to get the inside scoop. We always try to understand what expectations are and everything else. And one thing that's interesting in teaching, there's not really a junior teacher. I mean, all the teachers are kind of out there on the same level. And so what you expect for that 15-year veteran, the expectations are not a lot different for that second-year teacher or whatever. One of the interesting studies is 50% of the teachers don't last longer than 1 year.
Oh.
And so, I think they wanted to make sure that I wasn't kind of stressing unnecessarily or whatever, but just kind of reassure me. And I think they have some confidence in what I'm going to bring and some optimism and excitement, because I'm in a school of 900 elementary students, over 900 elementary students. There's 7 fourth grade teachers in the building. I will be like the 4th male faculty.
Oh my God.
From my understanding from talking with somebody else that knows something, there's a 5th grade male teacher. There's a 5th grade educational assistant, or a male educational assistant, I'm sorry. And then there's a male that works as part of either the janitorial crew or some other support position in the school. That I'll be like maybe the 4th or 5th male and the only male 4th grade teacher.
Wow.
And I don't think that's real uncommon either. In the schools that I volunteered in, there is a very low population of male faculty members too. So, I think that's something when you talk about, if I can lead into the challenges children face a little bit.
Right.
As I mentioned, the school district I'm going to is about 60% military dependents. And even without military dependents, quite often these are single parent families, or the parents are going to be deployed. They don't have a strong male presence. And so I think the biggest, most important thing that I have to do is I have to establish relationships with these children. Mm-hmm. I have to develop their trust. I have to develop a relationship with them, that they can share and be open with me, and that they'll be receptive to everything that I try to teach them. But I think that is kind of the foundation, and some of the professional reading I've done, I'm gonna forget the first name. There's a couple named Wong, W-O-N-G, that are very predominant in the educational field. And one of their books is The First Days of School. They've written another one on classroom management and many other books. And a lot of their research and other research, the most important thing within a school district is not the IT, it's not special programs, it's not class size, it's the quality of the teachers. And if you do not have quality teachers, you're not going to be truly successful. And it's what you invest in the teachers in terms of mentorship, in terms of development programs. Some of the school districts I read about, they have up to like 8-year programs that they have with their teachers to help support them and develop them as teachers, before they're kind of, cut loose or whatever. And too often in the past, teachers were kind of thrown in the classroom with a textbook and a little, a curriculum guide or something, and they're just kind of on their own with a lot of autonomy. And, I'm sure many teachers like the autonomy and stuff, but as I mentioned, the statistics are very poor for how long teachers stay with this profession. And so I think there's also very important to have the support system in place to help the teachers perform and continue to improve in development. And I mean, you can even go into, the pay and benefits on teachers too, and what people they're attracting to the profession. I didn't look at education as my original career because I was concerned about my ability to raise a family on a teacher's salary. Right. But after retiring from the military with my pension, now I have the luxury that I'm not worried about my teacher's salary, and actually the school district I'm with is very good. They give me 5 years credit for my military service, and they also give credit for the master's degree that I got with the military, even though it's not educationally related in terms of my pay scale. So I'll come in as a 5th-year teacher with a master's degree for pay purposes. And so that's a pretty good little perk, that's not publicized too much. That could be appealing to ex-military.
Wow, that's amazing. But you said something, and I hear from actually just about everyone that I've interviewed. It's like, we under the importance of teachers, but it's like they're not investing in the success or helping teachers become successful. I was wondering, what's your opinion on that, of why they don't understand, why our government don't realize the importance of teachers, training our teachers, paying our teachers, and showing them that we appreciate what they bring to the table, just like service members. I think they need to invest more in our teachers. I'm just wondering your thoughts on why the struggle, they struggle with investing into our teachers.
I don't know. It's pretty complicated, and I think they've been often taken for granted. I kind of wonder, given the virus situation and the situation where many parents all of a sudden had children thrust into them for homeschooling or something else, if there's parents and leaders have a greater appreciation of what teachers are required to do, and maybe there's some greater appreciation. But part of the challenge is here locally, as a result of the COVID-19 and the loss of income, the Nashville metro area is closing four schools. The local school district had to cancel part of the teacher raises because of the loss of income. So, I don't know. It's a very complicated, and I don't know that I could come up with an easy solution, but I think it's something that needs to continue to be emphasized, of developing teachers, because that's how you're going to better educate your students and better prepare them to go forward into the world and go on to college and so forth. I think too often too, we ask a lot of the teachers too. I think too often, I think one of the crucial aspects with teachers is their relationship with parents and guardians and the family. And I think that's part of the challenges of educating children, if there's not a good relationship between the teachers and the family, and that they're working together, that the parents are reinforcing the lessons that the teachers give. That I think part of the big challenges, and we see it here locally more so in Kentucky than Tennessee in that, but these children are coming from homes where possibly lower income, they may not be getting the nutrition they need. They may not be getting the rest they need. You know, I've seen where kids come to the classroom and the teacher can just not do anything with them, and really all they can let them do is just kind of put their head down and lay in the corner because, you know, the parents let them play video games all night or something else, and, you know, or wasn't around, and it occurred. And it's just, you know, you're asking a lot for teachers. They're not just instructors. I mean, they're out there as healthcare. They're out there concerned about children's welfare, nutrition. You know, there's everything in the schools now for breakfasts and you know, reduced fee meals and everything else. There's a lot more that teachers have to be concerned about. And years ago, when I was doing my graduate studies, you wouldn't have thought of it, but there was a grant approved, and my wife went into the elementary school and she prepared healthy snacks. And that's what her role was in Appalachia, Ohio, was preparing healthy snacks for the kids to help augment the food they were getting at school, and to also send food home with the children, and especially food home on the weekends, because otherwise they couldn't be sure that the children were getting the meals and the nutrition they needed. And that was a big thing locally here, that even when the schools were shut down, the schools had to come up with a way to continue to distribute meals for students, and that all the kids that were on the meal programs. And in many cases, I don't think school districts were prepared or able to do it, but it was something I did see locally that they did. But I think that adds to the challenges that teachers and students face. I mean, we can't expect students to learn if they're not healthy, if they're not getting the proper rest and nutrition when they come to school. And then, you know, like I said, you know, there's some of them that are coming from single parents, that they don't have good male role models or parent role models, or they're not around. You know, you're seeing, and I'm not against it, but you're seeing a lot of mainstreaming for different disabilities and different needs. And so that adds to the challenge in the classroom. When I volunteered on Fort Campbell, they had a lot of aides that helped students with various challenges and disabilities, and they had a good support system, but not all schools have that same thing. And we saw it during the education of my daughter. There were some environments that weren't ideal, far from ideal, to support them. And so there's that. And then for today, the challenges that children face, I think, is the impact of COVID. I mean, we can't completely protect them from that. I think it's adding to challenges with their social development and their ability to interact with other students. I think there's stress. I think there's fear. I think there's a lot of unknown. I think it's going to be real hard trying to go back to school and incorporate all the requirements that CDC or school districts require in terms of masks. I mean, the schools had started doing and have done for quite a while a pretty good job with hand washing and hand sanitizer. But, you know, if you got to separate students and you got to get students to quit sharing pencils and passing things back and forth and touching each other's stuff, you know, I think that's going to be challenging. And so I think with the virus, that's going to just add to the challenges for both the students and the parents. Okay. Pardon me as I'm just silencing my phone so we don't hear that.
I got it.
I apologize.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, I mean, and that has always been my struggle, is understanding why people just don't understand the importance of why we should invest a lot more into our teachers and making sure that they're successful. But let me ask you this, as it pertains to teaching boys and girls, what do you see the difference in, or do you see the difference in dealing with a male and a female child? Do you find it more difficult or more challenge dealing with one over the other?
At the younger grades that I was dealing with, second and third grade, and I think the same for fourth grade, I didn't see a big difference. I don't know there's really any basis of it with the third grade I was working with. We had more discipline challenges, classroom management challenges with the boys than we did with the girls. I'm not sure if there's any, I don't know if there's any factual basis to that. Maybe the boys are a little bit more restless. And I know when I was a young kid, I got in trouble because I didn't want to stay in my seat because I just didn't want to sit that long, you know. I wanted to get up and move around and do stuff. But in terms of, you know, classroom management challenges, I saw more with boys than girls, though some with girls. In terms of learning differences, at the older ages, there seems to be some studies and some other stuff, and I don't know it closely, of challenges with females with math and science and STEM and so forth. But I think that's kind of developed from people's expectations and stuff. So for me, down at the lower grades, I think what I want to do is I want to have the same expectations for my students, whether they're boy or girl, that I want to have the same expectation, that I want to have high expectations for their performance, for their understanding. You know, I think I may see some minor differences in how they learn, but I'm not sure. I haven't done enough to really have any concrete opinion or knowledge on differences at the lower age. I've just seen, for me, the differences I saw were individually, and I just had to, as I worked with students individually in tutoring or in small groups, you know, I just had to kind of figure out what the students understood and what they didn't understand, and I had to try and figure out different ways to present the information so they could understand what I was trying to get across. And it can be challenging. I was doing some math with a young female student in third grade, and what were we doing? We were doing estimates with a ruler and graphing, and I came at it 3 different directions, I think, and I could not get across to this this female student. Just could not. And I had to go back to the main teacher and says, I don't know what else to do. You know, I helped her with one problem and kind of really walked her through it, but she couldn't measure exactly and understand the different measurements on the ruler, let alone estimating, you know, length or whatever in that. But I think for me, it's individually that I just have to kind of see how we talked about the different modes of learning, whether it's hands-on, whether it's reading, whether it's oral. I think I need to look for that with my students and try to figure out what's the best way for them to learn and use that as necessary, but at the same time try to develop those other forms of learning too, so they can learn in more than one form or fashion. And I really think, I kind of think that my groove for teaching is going to be upper elementary to middle school. We'll see how it goes with 4th grade. But I think for me, what I want to do is try to develop in the females a desire to learn math, to be excited about math and science and STEM, because, I think we need them out there. And I remember some months back listening to NPR or something else, and it was a female CEO from Apple or Google or somewhere else, and they were trying to develop programs through all ages of the school, high school, middle school, and elementary school. And they said if they could just keep 1% of the females that they got in the program through the program to the college level, that would just, greatly increase the availability of female apprentices or female interns and stuff like that at the collegiate level. But what they were actually doing at this point is they were fighting over the available females, because it wasn't that the female interns had to work hard and apply and compete for the position. the schools and the companies were competing over the applicants because there was such a little population. And so I think my little piece of it is try to promote that in females especially, but then across all of them, that if you can promote a strong math or science STEM foundation, most kids will develop okay in the other core subject areas, social studies or whatever else. But I haven't seen a lot of differences, I guess, is kind of the bottom line at the age groups I've worked at.
Okay, I can understand that. So then, looking at the future, what do you think how do you think we better can prepare our kids for what's coming as it pertains to looking at a role? As you know, I never would have thought when I graduated, computers would be, indoctrinated into our educational system the way it is currently. So, if you could have a crystal ball and look in the future, what do you see possibly is going to be our future 10, 15 years from now? What do you think we should be moving towards as it pertains better preparing our kids for the future?
In terms of the educational, or terms of careers, or terms of good citizens?
Well, in terms of education is concerned.
Okay.
Yeah, education is concerned.
I think I got to help promote a desire to learn, I think is what I got to do. It can't be, especially at my level of the fourth grade, I can't, by the time the students get to me, it can't be that they hate school. It can't be that they don't want to learn, that they don't want to be there. I want to develop in them a desire to learn and understand new things and attain goals and improve their understanding and their knowledge. And that I think that's what I got to do. Is I just got to make, I think most people, if you set clear objectives and standards and you communicate that most cases, and I've done a lot of it in the athletic realm, students or players will strive for it. They'll work hard for you, if, you set clear standards, if you encourage them, if they know why they're doing. I can't be, hey, you got to learn this just because I tell you got to learn it. I need to tell them, why this is good information. Why is this important? And I don't know, it may not be too early, even in the fourth grade, for them to kind of understand how some of the things they're learning applies to what we're seeing in the world today. I mean, right now, the United States is doing a lot of self-examination, and I don't know if I want to get into an in-depth conversation with fourth graders about racism or whatever, but I can talk to them about equality. I can talk to them about how they treat each other. We are going to have to look at, we're going to be studying American history. And so, I am sure there's going to be some possible awkward conversations of how some of our founding fathers, had slaves and what was their opinion on slaves. And we had the Civil War and what, the reasons why the Civil War was fought. And, how is that impacting today where we're seeing protests about various monuments and statues? And so, I think even as fourth graders, I'm going to have to be sensitive how I present the information, but there is going to be some applicability of what is going on in the U.S. today.
Correct. Yeah, even I was watching a video today as I was, doing some research and stuff on, and we were looking at they were talking about the Confederate flag, but the bottom line, it was an economic decision. If you really look at the reason why the Confederate flag and really controlling slaves had everything to do with economics. And when I was watching the guy, he was teaching on that. He said, because you got to realize it was free labor. So they did not want to give up on the free labor. So they wanted to keep, things as status quo. And if you really look at it, if you're getting something for free and you're making, millions upon millions of dollars, it's difficult to say, okay, I'm going to free you when I've made so much money off of free labor. So it was really an economic decision.
Yeah, it was that. It was, you know, a lot of it in the political realm. I mean, later when they had where it was the 3/5, you know, it provided the southern states more representatives in Congress and stuff and that. And so I recently read a book called American Rebels, and it was about the Adams, Quincy, and Hancock families. And these early leaders in American history, you know, one of them went on to become the second president. They were involved in the early Declaration of Independence and everything else. They came from a small town of Braintree in Massachusetts and that. But, you know, early on, many of them were against slavery. But in order for them to keep the unity of all the colonies, and, you know, the big ones that they had to try to keep together was South Carolina and Georgia. And it was because them trying to keep those two colonies within the larger group and everything else that they didn't take a harder line against slavery, and really they didn't write too much about it at all. But earlier writing and everything else, the Adams and Quincy families were very firmly against slavery and everything else in that. But, you know, like I said, I think I'm going to have to be sensitive what the school district's policies are and everything else. You know, I don't want to turn it into a political issue, but it's also, you know, an educational opportunity of understanding our American history and how it continues to impact to this day.
Yes, so true.
And I think a big thing for me for preparing the kids for their future, you know, we're trying to prepare them so they can succeed academically, you know, at the collegiate level or whatever else. But we also want to send them off to be good citizens.
Yeah.
And I think our nation can use some good citizen examples right now as we're facing a lot of internal strife and challenges. And so, I mean, we want our children to come out, and we're seeing some of that here locally. I think it was some high school students that formed the first protests in the Nashville area in response to Lord's death and everything. So it was organized and put together by some very young individuals, I think under 20. And so, you know, they were already demonstrating some civic leadership, you could say. And so, like I said, you know, my kids are going to be 10. So, you know, I got to be sensitive to their age and everything else. But, you know, I think part of them, we want them to be good citizens, you know, by the time they exit the public school system.
Yeah. And that's definitely the truth. And we just want to prepare them for the future and definitely develop them to be, you know, good citizens. So, you know, my brother, I just want to know you that you answered all my questions. You gave such, you know, wealth of knowledge. And definitely want to appreciate you definitely supporting my vision, this cause, and what I'm putting together. I want to know if you have any parting thoughts based on what we talked about. Any last closing thoughts you want to, something I probably didn't talk about, something you just wanted that's on your heart that you want to express?
I think I guess the one thing that I would emphasize again is I think kind of in my head would probably be 3 points is teacher-student relationships. I think is going to be one of the most important thing, and I don't think I can be successful with each student unless I establish a good relationship. And I think you run into classroom management problems or discipline problems when you don't have a good relationship with a student. Mm-hmm. I think the relationship between the school and the teacher and the home, the families, is another thing that's extremely important. And then I think the development of teachers, from what I've read, and I'm going to experience some of it firsthand here in the near future. But I think the efforts that school districts put in terms of developing, improving, mentoring teachers is more valuable than about anything else we can do within the schools. And then otherwise, I guess, you know, what will be interesting will be several months from now when I'm plunged into the classroom, and we'll see how my thoughts compare to real life and everything else. And I guess the last thought I'd leave with you is, I think I'm looking for that bowling matchup.
Understandable. Hey, we're gonna definitely have to do that because I still bowl. Actually, I was going to go to Reno this past year before COVID hit, but I still bowl. I still enjoy it.
My skills have developed a little bit since I've left Germany, and my former teammate Reno and I still talk. I had a chance to bowl with him a little bit a year ago in Germany and that, but yeah, I'm hoping we have a chance to do that again. But I guess the last thing I say is thank you for the opportunity to participate. Like I said at the beginning, I hope I have something that's valuable. But you have my best wishes, and I'll try and say a couple prayers for your project, that it works out well and it comes to fruition as you envision it.
All right. From brother, appreciate all the support. God bless, and I look to speak with you soon.
All right, take care, Dennis. We'll see you.
Bye-bye.